All right. So just a few more things about basic probability. Let's talk about a compound probability. A compound probability is a probability involving two or more events. For example, the probability of event A and event B happening. So, what's the probability of flipping a coin twice and having it come up heads both times? Well, remember that the probability of any event is the number of ways the event can happen divided by the total number of outcomes. Okay? Well, we wanted a probability that it would come up heads. Well, how many heads are on a coin? Well, that's just one, right? One heads. And how many outcomes are on a coin? Well, that's two, heads or tails. So the probability of it coming up heads is 1 over 2. Now, if we wanted to know the probability of first flip comes up head and the second flip comes up head, we could do that, but we would have to know all the outcomes. So sometimes it's easier to split up this probability. And when we split up the probability, it's okay to do that when there's ands. So we can write that the probability the first flip heads and the probability that the second flip is heads. And why does that make that problem easier? Because we know the probability of flipping a head. We just did that. So the probability that the first flip is head is 1 over 2. And the probability that the second flip is heads is 1 over 2. And all we do is we say we multiply those. And so we get 1 over 4. So being able to split that up without knowing all the possible outcomes is really good because we know the possible outcomes of one coin, but we don't necessarily know the possible outcomes of two coins, but we can, okay? We can say that the possible outcomes of two coins are, well, if I flip the first coin, I can get a heads or I can get a tails, right? And on the second coin, I could get a heads or a tails. Well, if I got heads the first time, then tails I could get trying to change the color so you can see the different coins here. Heads and tails, right? So with two coins, that's not too bad. We can do the two coins and easily see that there are 4 possibilities here. That's our total possible outcomes. And the first flip comes up heads and the second flip comes up heads. Well, there's only one possibility for that to happen. So that is the 1 out of 4 that we found over here. But if we had to do 5 coins, we would have to come up with heads, 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 and then heads, heads, tails, heads, 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 tails. And now that list could be very long. We don't want to do that. So being able to split them up and using this multiplication process is a lot easier. So that's called the multiplication rule. And the multiplication rule works if the events are independent. Well, what do you mean by independent? That means they don't depend on each other. If I flip a coin, when I flip the coin again, it doesn't depend on what happened the first time. What I do with a dice, when I roll that dice again, no one cares what the first roll was. No one cares what the next roll is. Those things are independent. When I spin a spinner, those are independent. But when I draw a marble out of a bag, it could be dependent. It could be independent. It depends on if I put the marble back in the bag or not. Same thing with cards. So these things could be dependent or independent. And when they're independent, then the probability of both of events happening is the probability of A times the probability of B. Okay? So let's talk about these marbles in the bag. So we have these marbles in the bag, and we have 4 blue marbles, 6 green marbles, and 3 yellow marbles. Well, we still have 13 total marbles. So it says first drawing, what's the probability of drawing a green marble and then drawing a yellow marble with replacement? So what does that mean? Well, let's see, the probability of a green and the probability of yellow. So the probability of a green is 6 out of 13. Now, with replacement means I took a marble out, I take that marble, and I put that marble back into the bag. So there's still 13 marbles in the bag. So when I go to draw the yellow marbles, there are three yellow marbles in the bag. So I can take these and I can multiply 6 over 13 times 3 over 13 to get 18 over 196, or that's not 196, sorry, that's 169, or 0.107. Now, how's that different without replacement? Well, when I draw the green marble, that doesn't change anything because that's the first marble out of the bag. I get 6 out of 13. But if I don't put that marble back in the bag, I don't have 13 marbles in the bag anymore. I only have 12 in the bag. So now my marble count is 3 out of 12. So now when I try to figure out the probability of this, I'm doing 6 over 13 times 3 over 12, which is now 18 over 156, or 0.115. This also reduces to 3 over 26. Okay? All right. So how does that look with the two blue marbles? So the probability of drawing a blue marble is there are 4 blue marbles out of 13. We put that marble back, we still have 4 out of 13. So 4 out of 13 times 4 out of 13 is 16 out of 169, or 0.095. Now, how does that change without replacement? Well, the first one is exactly the same because the probability of a blue marble is 4 out of 13. Now, consider the blue marble is in my hand. So that means that there are no longer 13 marbles in the bag, but there are 12. Now, I just said the blue marble's in my hand. So if the blue marble's in my hand, there's not 4 blue marbles in the bag, there's 3 blue marbles in the bag. So now the marbles are 3 out of 12. So now I would say 4 out of 13 times 3 out of 12, which is 12 out of 156, or 1 out of 13, and the decimal is 0.077. Okay? So this is all you need to know about compound probability. Now, the back side of this worksheet is actually about geometric probability. I want you to know that we're not going to do anything with geometric probability. So we're not going to do anything with geometric probability. However, there are some problems on your homework that talk about cards. So I want you to take some notes about cards, okay? Because some of you don't play cards and don't know much about cards. So I want you to be able to know some things about cards. There are 52 cards in a deck. There are 4 suits. There are hearts, and there are diamonds. And just like I drew them, they are red. Then there are spades. Ooh, that's a bad spade. Let me draw that again. Spades. And there are clubs. And these cards are black. Okay? Now, there are 13 cards in each suit. Those cards are A, which stands for aces, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then there are 3 what they call face cards. They're face cards because they have faces on them. The Jack, the Queen, and the King. Okay? So there are one of each of these. in each suit. That means there's 4 of each of these in the deck. There are 26 red cards and 26 black cards. Okay? That's all the information you need to know about cards in order to draw cards